Hello, and congratulations on getting to Module 3 in the course on Global Citizenship Education. I hope that you've been enjoying the course so far. My name is Felisa Tibbetts, and I'm Chair in Human Rights Education at Utrecht University and lecturer at Teachers College of Columbia University. In my brief presentation today, I'd like to orient you to the whole school approach. And a main resource for my presentation today is actually a publication by UNESCO and ASP.NET called Getting Climate Ready. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. There we go. GCED and the whole school approach. So one question for you, since you've been thinking about global issues in this course, or what are the opportunities you can already identify for students in your class to learn about GCED in the school, aside from classroom teaching? If you think for a moment, you probably have some ideas about that. Well, the whole school approach is basically a way of holistically thinking about teaching and learning in the school environment, including, of course, classroom teaching like you do, but other experiences that students have in and even outside the school that influence their learning, their attitudes, and their skills. The whole school approach draws our attention to these multiple ways in which we can support learners in their growth, in this case, around GCED. The four categories identified by UNESCO and ASP.NET, which are similar to the categories identified by the Child-Friendly Schools initiative by UNESCO and UNICEF, are the ones you see on your screen. Teaching and learning, which has been a main focus of this course, school governance, community partnerships, and facilities and operation. There may be other categories that come to mind for you as well, which is perfectly fine, but what I'd like to do is to go through these briefly in order to hopefully ignite some new ideas about the what next of GCED in your school, extending beyond your classroom walls. So of course, as you know, we've been pretty much focused on teaching and learning in this course. You've looked and thought about integrating GCED within your classroom teaching, strengthening what you had been doing before, introducing new ideas and themes and activities, using transformative pedagogy to help students to think critically about their world, creatively about solutions, and proactively taking measures, empowering students to take action. This has been really the core of the GCED course that you've been taking with ASP.NET and UNESCO. So on the topic of teaching and learning in your classroom, how else might you engage in classroom teaching and learning in collaboration with other teachers in your department, in your grade, in your school, lifting it out of just only your classroom? Maybe there are opportunities there. For example, through peer sharing and coordination. You might also think about teachers in other countries. Most likely you're part of the ASP.NET Schools network at this point. If not, join up. It's an opportunity for you to get connected with teachers like you, interested in GCED and other themes like peace, human rights, environmental development, sustainable development in other countries. And maybe you want to think about clubs like the Model United Nations. These are all connections you can make that will enrich the teaching and learning in your classroom. When you think about a whole school approach, if you do take this on, remember that it's not like a solo trip. It's not about you taking leadership and then organizing everyone else in your school environment. That's asking a lot. The idea is that it's a team effort. So if you do get excited about thinking about your school being a GCED school, consider how you might involve other teachers. how you might involve administrators and your headmaster or principal, other staff in the school, counselors, psychologists, custodians, those who help keep the school running, cafeteria people, if you have a cafeteria, they can also be involved in a school-wide approach for GCED. And of course, students, their families, and local community members and organizations. Many, many actors could be involved in a whole school approach to GCED. If you do decide to move forward, this kind of links up with one of the dimensions of the whole school approach, which is school governance. That already comes to light when you think about putting together a GCED team. So if you are thinking about a whole school approach, maybe you want to create a GCED team in your school that draws from these different groups that I just presented a moment ago. If you do decide to organize such a team, some things to keep in mind are gender balance, so a good balance between males and females. And insofar as you do have student representatives on your team, and of course, I strongly encourage that you do, within the students themselves, ensure that there's a good diversity, and also really be clear about what the role of the team is and who has decision-making power, if any, around what actions will be undertaken and by whom moving forward. So that's school governance. What about community partnerships? Wow, I mean, global citizenship education is all about like looking outside your school, right? Looking outside your community and your country, not ignoring them, but looking beyond. So why not take learning outside the classroom? Think about organizing field trips or visits to businesses or civil society organizations or government authorities that somehow you can link up with GCED themes. Maybe the GCED themes have to do with themes like going green and being eco-conscious. There could be also other GCED themes that you're taking on that would be something you could take up with the local civil society organization. Think about bringing in guest speakers. Have those guest speakers organize in-school activities with your students. Students love these kinds of things, teachers as well, assuming the partners are really eloquent and know how to work with students and can come up with some great ideas, but you can help them with that as an educator. Think about having your students organize action projects in collaboration with ideas or even partners that come into your school. Lots of ways to think about using community partnerships. Here again are some of the different kinds of community partnerships that you might keep in mind if you go this route. These community partners overlap to some degree with school stakeholders, for example, through families, but there's many other kinds of partnerships that you might become involved with. Other schools in your region, in your province, local businesses that might have something to do with trade or commerce or production related to GCED. Civil society organizations working on GCED related themes like diversity, minority cultures, eco-friendly and eco-responsible behaviors. Many civil society organizations are working in the GCED area. The media, why not think about involving different media? You may have a local radio, newspaper, but maybe digital media might be also a resource for you to draw on somehow. Local government officials also many times have interests in GCED related themes. See if you can identify some that might be linked up with some of the things you're doing in your classroom or school. And finally, of course, last but not least, think about national and even international networks like AspNet that are engaged with GCED that you could join up or you could link your students up with to carry out collaborative learning, creative action projects. If you do a Google search, you may be able to find some of these, but AspNet is also a terrific resource for you. Finally, what about facilities and operations? What does that have to do with GCED? Well, if you think about, again, a whole school approach to GCED, and again, these are just ideas for you to stimulate your thinking. You may have And I'm sure you will have other ideas that you'll think will be more exciting or relevant for your school. But in any case, facilities and operations, maybe there's a way for your school to become a model of GCED, especially when we think about going green. Maybe there can be GCED sensitive practices such as composting waste, buying local products and produce. You know, if you begin to think of GCED in relation to going green, there are many, many ways in which how your school operates can be more eco-friendly. So these were some of the ideas that I wanted to share with you about the whole school approach, and to congratulate you again for getting to this point in the course, wishing you success in furthering your own GCED practices in your classroom, but also encouraging you to continue to think big, think school-wide, and to move forward in your GCED learning and practices. Thanks for listening.